Plans don't always work out in landscape photography. It happens a lot. Is that a bad thing? The weather threw a curveball today, but I get to shoot and edit foggy landscape photographs and share them with you. Come with me, walk in the fog to a Dartmoor location I've been planning to photograph for a while, and these conditions might just make it a little different from others I have seen. I will share with you a few tips to help you cope with these conditions, a little bit of advice on composing misty and foggy photographs. I'm also going to give you an overview of my Lightroom editing process from beginning to end. You're part of the photographic community that gives me so much, so it's time to give back to all of you. It's my mission to inspire and pass on my knowledge, passion and skills. You can subscribe using the watermark button on the screen. Ring your bell to make your subscription count. Please stay to the end and comment. It's your feedback that keeps the channel going. Well, hello, here we are, Ditsworthy Warren, obviously still very much in the mist. To be honest, the weather conditions today have completely thrown me a bit of a curveball because I was coming out to photograph something entirely different. But you've just got to work with what you've got and adapt, and that's one of the great things about landscape photography and one of the skills that you really need to master. You haven't got control over anything really apart from where you go and what time you go there. You can look at the weather forecast and you can make fantastic plans, and then you get up in the morning and you're thrown a curveball and you end up with conditions like this, which are really quite, difficult to work with. But we are here, and we're going to make the absolute most of it. So I'm going to get the stills camera out and see what I can do. Right, okay, so it's been a bit difficult to vlog, to be honest, because as you can see, it is really quite misty. And it's that sort of damp mist that clings to everything. So I've got everything covered over in towels and bags at the moment to try and keep it all dry. Now I have come up with a composition, and what I'll do is I'll put a picture up on the screen for you later on so you can see what it is. But I want to talk you through it now, basically. If I can, in editing, I'll put a thumbnail up on the screen of what I'm looking at so that you can see what I'm discussing. So I've got the camera set up so that we've got the gateway into the compound or yard around Ditsworthy Warren in the foreground, and that gives us a nice sort of opening and entrance into that area. Now what I like with the mist is that it creates layers of recession, and the only thing I can use to create that sense of depth, because it is very flat in misty conditions, is the recession in the trees as they go into the distance. So we have a more dominant tree on the left hand side, and then as we go through the picture down the left hand side, they come back in towards the center of the frame but also recede into the distance at the same time. And then we have the house itself in the background, almost as the backdrop. So we're going to take that picture. As I usually do when I'm sort of in these conditions, I tend to load my pockets up with absolutely everything. So I've got the cable release to fit to the camera, and I've got lens cloths and everything in here that I might need. So we're going to sort that out now, and then we'll take it from there and see what we can do. So let's attach this, attach the cable release. One of the things with being short is you can't really see what you're doing most of the time. We'll just make sure that the lens is clean before we take the picture. The trouble in misty conditions is, whilst you're setting things up, and although you try and keep things dry, you will inevitably get some moisture and things on the lens, and that's never a great thing really. So we'll just give that a quick wipe. Looks pretty clean to me. So let's put that in there. Now in misty conditions, things can often end up So in misty conditions, things can often end up very overexposed, and you've got to be a little bit careful with controlling the highlights, because we want bright and airy and recession, but we don't want blown out and unable to see what we're doing. So let's power this all back up using the live view. I've already framed the image back up, and I'm just using the histogram really to decide where I'm going to set things or where I'm going to take things. So everything's focused quite nicely. We're mounted on the tripod, so we make sure that our stabilizer is off, our autofocus is on. That's not a problem. Now I'm shooting at f8 and I'm focusing just on this wall in the foreground. I'm not actually too worried about the background dropping off and going a little bit out of focus, so I'm going to leave it at f8 and take my first picture there, and then we'll have a look. So let's call up some information. The highlight alert is flashing. I've taken my first picture, a full stop over, so we'll bracket from there down third stop increments, and we'll keep going until we think we've got it all. So that's the first exposure. And we just keep taking them and keeping an eye on that histogram, because what we might need to do in processing is combine some of these darker images in to get that full range of tones. And if I do that, I'll show you the editing. Okay, so I'm happy with that composition. That's one in the bag. So here we are back in the warm and dry office. It seems quite a long time since I've actually done an editing video and had you guys in here, so I apologise if I'm a little bit rusty when I'm doing the screen recordings and everything. Anyway, as you can see from the last sort of clip that you've just watched, that basically it wasn't going to work today. It was far too wet and difficult to sort of take still photographs and videos and keep everything dry and make some sense at the same sort of time. So I thought I'd come back into the office and show you how I edit the picture that I've taken inside of Lightroom. I'm a recent convert to Lightroom. I would say that I've probably sort of started using it within the last sort of 12 months. And the reason for that was that back in when I started landscape photography and digital photography, Lightroom didn't really exist, and for those reasons I sort of stuck with Photoshop, and I've stayed with it and various plugins right the way through my journey until recently. But Lightroom now has a great set of features, and some of them we're going to show you in this video, and that's enabled me to start using it much more. And I actually find it sometimes easier to use, a little bit quicker, and without some of the hassle of using lots of different layers and plugins inside of Photoshop. So let's not wait any longer, let's get inside and have a look. We're going to start off in the library mode, and then we're going to take the image that we want to use into the develop mode and show you the edits. Okay, so here we are. You should be able to see the library view up on your screen, and with a bit of luck, if all goes well, I'm down in the right hand corner. So as you can see, I didn't actually take a lot of pictures during the shoot itself, and to be honest, you don't need to. You only need to take the pictures which you want and that you require. So just because you've got digital, if the conditions are bad, let's get it right in camera. And you know, that's where it becomes important to have an efficient workflow and a good way of working in the field to help you make sure you achieve what you want. Because at the end of the day, we've just got to have the right pictures to put in here. So we're in the library mode. Let's go straight into develop. So this isn't the picture that we're going to be working on, but I've put it up just so you can see what the color version looks like. So the color version of this image basically works okay, but I always try and go back to what I was trying to achieve when I was working out in the field. And what I wanted to go for was a monochrome image with this line of trees drawing your eye back through through the gateway and into the field, and use that nice recession in the mist to bring up the details. So let's open up the black and white version that we're going to be working on. So this is how the image looks before I actually do any edits on it at all. So basically what I've done is switched on black and white. I've done some very basic edits in the basic panel, and that's to reduce the exposure slightly, increase the contrast, set my white point and my black point. If later on you want me to do a more in-depth video on Lightroom, I'll have a go at that. So put some notes, put some requests in the comments if you want me to. So from the basic panel, I go down to our lens corrections, and in lens corrections, with black and white, there's not a huge amount to do, but I do always apply the automatic adjustments to it, which basically deal with any sort of distortion that you might get in the lens itself. So I've just switched those on. So it automatically picks up that it's a Canon, it picks up it's my 24 to 105, and it will apply its own adjustment to it. So that's as far as we go with lens corrections. Okay, so we've finished with our global adjustments now in the basic panel and the lens correction panel. Now, one of the reasons which I've started using Lightroom more and more is because it has a great suite of local adjustment tools. And we've got a local adjustment brush, we've got a radial filter, and we've also got a graduated filter. We're going to start with the local adjustment brush to start with. And I'm going to click on this little pin here, which will show you what I've done to the trees. So the trees in the background, if you remember, were a very important part of the composition, because they're what draw your eye through the picture. So I've actually shaded those in using the adjustment brush, applied a luminance mask, which basically allows me just to pick a tonal range, being the trees in this case. And then I've reduced the exposure slightly, increased the contrast, and a little bit of dehaze on there as well, just to make them sort of like stand out and bleed through a little bit more. And that's just given me that extra strength and depth down there with those particular images, those particular parts of the composition. So let's get rid of that luminance mask for you. And the other thing that I've done is I've done some work on the wall. Now we can put the overlay on. Okay, so there's the overlay over the top. So we can see down on the wall that the red area shows what we're actually affecting. So I've only used the brush to tone in those areas. And basically what I've used it for is to adjust the texture. So what I've done is I've actually said, look, I want this wall to be a little bit more gritty and stand out a little bit more and bring through some of the texture of the granite. So that's what I've used that for. So we'll leave that switched on for now as well. We'll come back to the radial filter in a minute. We're going to go straight to the grad. So okay, so there's the graduated filter with the mask overlay on. What I wanted to use this for was to give some more depth and strength to the bottom of the picture, because that is what helps to create that sense of depth, of something being close and quite distinct under these conditions. I've extended that darker area of mud and ground through the gateway a little bit, just to help you sort of take your eye in and have that sense of walking through and depth in the image. And what I've basically done is if we open this up, you can see I've just used it to basically reduce the exposure, but I've done it ever so slightly. But it's only about 0.2, but it is enough just to tone it down a little bit. So let's get rid of that. Now what I've used the radial filter for is to produce a vignette. And to make it a bit easier to do that, we're going to zoom out to 1 to 8. And then we'll select it, and then we'll show you the overlay as well. So there's the overlay for the vignette, and you can see that I've dragged the radial filter all the way out, way past around the edge of the edges, but I've used a maximum feather of 100, and this allows a very gradual increase in the strength of that filter. And what it's basically doing is it's allowing the center of the picture to be very slightly lighter, because I've only really reduced the exposure by half a stop, And I've also used it to set the highlights a bit darker as well, and that sort of draws your eye into the picture. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. I'm going to sort of open up the and show you the finished image in a minute, but basically that's all that I sort of tend to do inside of Lightroom. So if you enjoyed that video, then please obviously subscribe. Hang around for the end screen, but I've got some more suggested videos that you may like to see. I hope you're enjoying the video. Maybe you would like to carry on, so try these suggestions next. I want to share more knowledge, more skills, more passion and stories about photography with you. So think about subscribing. If you do, ring the bell. It will make your subscription count. If you have time, comment. I will see you on the next video. So get out there and enjoy your photography.